Okay, so today I decided to do something a little bit different. So I recently saw a video from Eric July where he gave a bunch of ideas and tips and suggestions for any of us who are looking into entering the indie manga comic sphere. Essentially, either whether you want to be a publisher, writer, artist, and you want to create your own content, he gave his own perception as to what is needed to succeed in this field. Now, it had a mixed reception. For me personally, I found those information insightful, but I suppose people really saw him more as a big publisher rather than an indie publisher, that he is, because indie means independent, and people sometimes forget that indie means independent and not small. But anyways, I decided that, you know what, I myself am an indie publisher. I have published 2 issues of my series Red Rapture, and there might be people who want to kind of hear my thoughts and opinions and maybe see what it actually takes, the experience that I went through, and what they can learn from someone who's actually currently doing it, and maybe someone who they can see is on a similar level to themselves. So I wanted to make this video, give you guys my experience and my thoughts, what I went through, what I thought about, and the decisions that I made to get to where I am now, where Red Rapture is currently sitting on Amazon with a very high review. I have a lot of reviews on Amazon. I think we're about 70 reviews. So it's honorable, it's humble, and I'm happy with it, and it's continuing to grow because the more people are reading my manga, the more people are saying they really enjoy it. So I feel like I'm in the right direction. I feel like I'm comfortable enough to kind of come out here and talk to you guys about my experience and my thoughts and all that stuff. So let's get into it. So how it all began is that, I'll be honest with you, it happened just one day. One day I decided, you know what, I wanted to do something. And the reason why I say I wanted to do something is that I was one of those individuals who was kind of wanting to see proper diversity for people of my skin complexions. Like, I was not satisfied with what I was seeing. I know there's efforts being made, but it just wasn't to what I wanted. So I decided, you know what, I gotta put my money where my mouth is, and I decided to dive deep into creating the story of Red Rapture. The first thing that I did was I wrote out the entire story. So I am not winging it with each chapter, which I noticed that a lot of people tend to do, which is something I advise heavily against. Do not write your chapters day by day and winging it. Write out the entire plot line of the story, the beginning and how you want it to end, and write it out, a plot line. That's what I call it. I think that's the proper term. Write out a plot line, and then from there it acts like a skeleton to guide you to what you want the story to be. So you can go back, reference it, and see if you're still on track as to where you want to be in the story. This helped me a lot when it comes to Red Rapture. Because I'm already used to writing stories, back in primary school and secondary school, I was very good at writing stories. So I kind of had that framework already embedded in me. But I still did a lot of research, which is the second point I want to go over, is that do research on how to tell stories. That is very important. If you want people to take your story seriously, you have to take it seriously yourself, which means you have to do the research, you have to do the study, and you have to learn the procedures, how to structure a story so that it is engaging and at the same time insightful and enjoyable for people to read. So that's what I did. I did some studying. I also wrote out the plotline of Red Rapture. And then once I did that, I decided to do the next step, which is find an artist. Because as you know, I am a writer and publisher, but I don't draw Red Rapture because I do not have the skills. So when hiring an artist, I did a lot of research. I looked through every artist's portfolio to find the ones that I wanted, and then I hit them up and said, hey, do you want to work on this? Now, the framework that I've went with this kind of procedure is that I treated it like a business, essentially. Like, I didn't want to see it as, oh man, I'm asking you for help, lend me a hand. No. You do what I want, and I will obviously compensate you for the effort that you're doing. And this is kind of like the structure that I've done, because I've invested not only my time but my finance into this, because I truly believe in the story that I want to tell. Once you invest your financial backings into your project, you begin to finally see it less as a hobby and more as a business, and that will allow your mind to start making critical decisions that you need to be able to move it forward. And this is where I guess the third advice comes into play, is that you need a timeline. You need time management. You cannot, I know sometimes we have this artist block or writer's block where you feel like you're stuck as to where you want to be. This is why I say write out the plot line. When you write out the plot line, it helps minimize the writer's block, but at the same time, you know, it's impossible to avoid. Sometimes you just feel like you don't know where you want to go or what you want to say. I think it's important to have time management, so that you can structure your time and know that, okay, at this time, at this day, I have to sit down and begin writing my story or draw it out or whatever the case may be. The reason why I'm focusing a lot in time management is that a lot of people focus too much on trying to get the first issue perfect, or the first character perfect, or the first plotline perfect. And it's like, at some point you have to control and say, okay, enough, we've reached the point, all the metrics that you've set out for yourself have been hit, it's time for me to move on to the next step. You cannot linger on things like character design, on things like, you know, I gotta make sure everything is picked perfect. It's like, you will get stuck forever and you will never be able to get your shit out. And this is something I had to learn eventually. It's like, I had to just say, you know what, I've reached where I need to be. Every baseline has been hit. I got to move forward. You have to have that strong mentality to say, enough, it's time to move on to the next step. Time management, critical. Now, aside from all of that, you know, when you're focusing and doing all that stuff, you know, pacing in each of the manga pages is very important. I had to learn that because people will try to cram as much information as possible into one page because you don't want the readers to lose what you're trying to say. But the rule that I have when I was going to Red Rapture from the very beginning, right, before I even started, is that show, don't tell. You want to be able to convey what you want to say through simple images with text. Like, if you're, don't do the, I suppose, Hunter x Hunter or Jujutsu Kaisen unless it's absolutely necessary. You have to balance it out. I think it's all about balancing. When it's absolutely necessary, when you feel that this is the most pivotal information you need the readers to know, okay, put it down. But if it's something that you can actually show them, or you can span it out in a couple of pages, do it. Pace yourself and learn to pace how this manga pages will flow. This is something that we all have to learn, and no one ever gets it perfect. And once you have all of that stuff done, and once you've figured out, or once you've pretty much reached the point where, you know, you're ready to publish your first manga issue, here comes the difficult part. Because creating the manga or comic or webtoon, whatever it is that you choose to participate in, is not actually the difficult part that I've learned, honestly. It's really not. The difficult part becomes letting people know your stuff exists. That is the most difficult aspect that any content creator, indie publisher will face when entering this field. It is letting people know, hey, I have created something, I need you to know that it exists. And that is when you need to learn marketing, learning how to use advertising, and learning how to reach people, and learning how to market your book in an enticing way that will allow readers to go, or potential consumers will go, huh, this sounds interesting, let me check it out. And this is a never ending procedure. It never stops. I need you to get this in mind. You will never stop marketing your book. It will never end. I'm gonna repeat this one more time. It will never end. As soon as that book hits your publishing website, whether you want to choose to publish it on Amazon, or you want to use Ingram, or is it Ingram? Yeah, Ingram Spark or anything else like that, accept it. You will have to learn how to market your book. Do not post your comic, your manga on any of this platform and expect it to just blow up. Some of us will have that miracle, but we are not all blessed like that. Some of us will have to work hard. We are all Rockies out here. And when I published Red Rapture, I knew that I needed to market my, manga to let people know that it existed. And I thought, okay, if I opened up a couple of social media accounts, and if I posted something about it, surely people will obviously look what I created. It's a masterpiece, right? No, it has to do a lot more work like that. It just doesn't work. So here are the tips that I've learned so far, or the things that I think will be beneficial for anybody who's currently in that phase where you've created your first issue, your first manga, whatever the case may be. You've published it, and now you need to let people know that it exists. First off, you need some form of budget. If you don't have a budget, I think that's fine, but that means you just have to be a lot more active on your social media accounts. Now, the first tip that I would give you is create a social media account dedicated solely to that manga. So that means, I'm sorry to tell you this, you're going to have to separate yourself from your manga. Your manga needs to have its own identity. It cannot be associated with your personal social media account. You can use your social media account to let people know that your manga exists, and then tell them to follow the social media account of the manga itself, but it has to be separate. The reason why I'm saying this is from my observation of people who use their social media account to not only promote their comic book or manga or webtoon, but then they'll also use that same social media account and end up in drama. I'm sorry to tell you this, but people get very turned off when they see drama from a content creator, because it starts to twist the perception of the individual that is creating their favorite, manga, whatever the case may be. I think it's very, very vital you have a manga dedicated social media account, or when I say manga, because in my head Red Rapture is a manga to me, but you can obviously change that to whatever it is. Create your own social media account, and then you need to start learning how to market your comic, manga, whatever. Learn how to create posts that are enticing, learn how to tell people about your comic, why it's interesting, the unique selling point, and why they should check it out. I think that's it. And you're just gonna have to learn how to promote. There is no one way, right way to tell you how to promote or market your comic book. That's why you have to do extensive research practically every day. Always watching videos, maybe jump into a course or two or something like that. I didn't really do that, to be honest. Really, I think all the information that I need oftentimes is online, in YouTube or whatever the case may be. Learn from others, learn from the successful ones, and more importantly, learn from the ones who failed. There are those who failed, unfortunately, but you can learn something from them and then use that to push yourself forward. Now, if you do have a little bit of a budget, nothing crazy, like it's just a small budget, right? I would suggest you find one of the options here, whether it's Google ads, Facebook ads, and I think that's about it. I mean, I'm trying Twitter ads to see how that works, but for now, Google ads or Facebook ads, one day two, maybe drop in like $5 or €5 a day or something like that. Just calculate how much you're able to afford in a month and let ads run for your comic book ad, because that's one of the few ways you'll be able to let people know that your stuff exists. It's very important. Like, you have to put in the effort to let people know that your comic book manga exists. Now, aside from that, I guess the other tip that I would give you is how to sell your comic. Like, from what I've learned, many people in the social media sphere, when it comes to the indie creation field, will use tactics like, hey, look, I have this character who's of this X, or comic book is filled with diversity, or I don't know, it's like there's a way that they're advertising it, and I feel like it's never really enticing, because I ask myself, if I see that, am I willing to look into it? Am I willing to check it out? Now, sometimes it works, right? Sometimes it does work. I'm not gonna lie to you, but you shouldn't rely too heavily on it. I think you should rely more heavily on the unique selling point of your manga, like your hook that has you, wanting to read it. You need to find a unique selling point, something that separates your manga from other groups of mangas that are out there. Once you understand that unique selling point, begin to market it around it. I think that's the first thing that you want to do. Also, I think if I'm being honest with you, there's a part of the video that Eric July said that I think I agree with, is that do not expect people to owe you a promotion, if that makes sense. I think that's one thing I should really say, is like, you should not rely or depend on people to promote you simply because you feel like they owe you that. I think you need to rely on yourself. You can work with other people, obviously, but it shouldn't really feel like you're depending on people. Do you get what I'm saying? And yeah, and I think that's I think that's all the advice that I have per se. I mean, you will. Oh, one more thing. This is a very important thing. Is that when you write your stories, you need to also realize you're not writing it for everyone. You are not writing your story for everybody. You know, there will be people who will not like your story. That is fine. Your goal is to find those who will actually enjoy your story and then heavily focus on them. So maybe if you have a social media account and you start getting some hate, because for some reason people will always hate. So it is. Hateful people always exist. It's just what it is. Do not spend too much time on them. I mean, there's something about people always retweeting and focusing on people who criticize their work as opposed to admiring and appreciating the ones who are enjoying your story. People seem to have very fixated minds on the criticized or hateful versions of comments as opposed to the insightful criticism that comes from it. Does that make sense? That makes sense. That makes sense. Don't worry about it. That makes sense. Yeah, you need to focus on being professional. I think that's where I'm trying to get at. Be professional. You may call yourself an indie creator, and I think people see that term as a loose, casual, man, I'm cool, I'm out here, I'm just a one-man team doing my thing, casual, whatever. No. The moment you decide to charge people for something, you need to be professional. You need to be professional, carry yourself in a professional manner, and people will see that and reciprocate it. Right? You can still have some human emotion behind it. Right? You can still express your personality, but it should still have some form, some decay of professionalism hovering over it. Do you get what I'm saying? Are you vibing with me? I want people to succeed, but I also want people to realize that if you're going to create something and then decide to sell it to people, you are now technically, a form of a business, and you need to carry yourself in a certain way. That's all I'm saying. I think a lot of people sometimes forget that, and they think that because I'm an indie creator, I can get away with certain things. It's like, no. Build the habit earlier on, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to become large, right? You want to scale up, get bigger, have more people reading your stuff, and then probably one day, if you're interested, getting a publisher deal or even getting an animation deal. Like the whole idea is that you want to grow bigger. So if you build the foundations now when you're small, as you scale up, it becomes a lot easier to maintain that professionalism instead of you being casual and lax and saying stuff now, and then later on it comes and bites you in the ass. But that's just my opinion on it. That's all the tips I have. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to answer it. That's just my thoughts and opinion on it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.